So let's quickly go into it now. For the Gen Zs, we have Zuleka and Zoleka and Moses. They're going to be representing the Gen Zs, and they're going to be speaking strong on behalf of Gen Z, you know. And then we have Minister Day, Dr. Day, who is like the capo, you know. He's the millennial of the millennials, you know. Among millennials, they're like senior millennials. Yeah, he's going to be the chief the chief defender. And then we have Dr. Japheth, and then you have myself that, you know, I'll be trying to, you know, try to balance things up. Okay, let's quickly go into this. I think I'm going to start with Dr. Zoleka. My first question to you is this: what are the misconceptions that millennials have about you as Gen Zs?
Me or Zuleka?
No, there's Dr. Zoleka and there's Miss Zuleka. So I think you're the
they just call me Zoe.
Okay, Dr. Zoe. Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, that works. See,
okay. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Dr. Zoe, as Minister Israel has said. And I first was to start by saying that one of the main points is that we're unserious people. So before I even get into any strong points, I want to get rid of that point that just because I'm outside and, you know, or like we don't usually do things the way typical millennials would. People usually tend to think that maybe we're unserious with things, or we're not hardworking, or we're not committed, or, you know, we're not just serious people, which is not true, because a lot of things that are being done in the world now in terms of like businesses, technology, on social media is being really
recording in progress.
Being led by millennials. So one of the first misconceptions that they have is that we're lazy, right? And we're not. And the second thing is that we are disrespectful in a sense, because I think we grew up more in a digital world compared to millennials who grew up, you know, in, I don't want to say villages or old times, but they had more experience of, like, you know, being taught, how do I say, like they had more experience with their like grandparents, traditionally going to the villages. So it's not that we're disrespectful in a sense, but it's just we not have beg your pardon?
No, go ahead. Sorry, it must have.
We might not have had the same growing up experience that the millennials had, right? Yeah, I think those are my two main points. So that we're not as unserious as people think we are, and that we're not disrespectful in any way.
All right. You don't say it. Please, Dr. Adeosun, now, I'm going to ask you this question directly. Do you think Gen Zs are unserious and lazy, and a lazy bunch of people? Dr. Adeosun, are you there? Okay, maybe he's not there. In that case, what's happening? Hey, are these millennials rolling away? God, I can't believe this.
I think Gen Zs are winning for now.
For sure, we are winning.
Definitely.
All right. Anyway. Okay, great. So, oh my God, this is unbelievable. All right. So yeah, in that case, let's just continue with the Gen Zs until the millennials get their acts together, and then, you know, they're able to put up.
He's here. Dr. Adeosun is here.
Oh, Dr. Adeosun, you're back.
Yeah, sorry, I had to sort out my body. Wanted to disrupt the meeting.
Oh, right. Okay, so the first Gen Z speaker said one of the issues they have is that millennials always consider them unserious people, lazy people, disrespectful people. So I'm putting the question directly to you. Do you think that Gen Zs are unserious, lazy, and disrespectful?
Okay, so
God.
The word Gen Z itself, it sounds very unserious, but we'll just leave that one aside. I don't think they are unserious people. I actually think that it's just the way the technology age has brought them into. And let me say, when you see a child as, that's eating biscuits for the first time, the way they get excited about that biscuits, you are giving a child something, you are giving, and they just get so excited. I think that's how the Gen Zs get excited about what is going on around them. The fast pace at which technology is moving, things are going on at unusual rates. Things normally there are some structures that was put in place when we were, growing up as millennials that, now it seems those structures are being shattered, and you could see someone, a 15-year-old, 14-year-old child will sit down at home, and because they have a phone, they become an internet sensation. And at that point, they are not even prepared for what it means to be an internet sensation or what it means to be this. But when we became, as we started going up into life, we began to experience things in different angles, and we were actually trained for some particular exposures that we have at the moment, which is not the same way with the Gen Zs. So I wouldn't say that they are rude. I'm just going to say that it's just the way things are at the moment. They have so much exposure and they think that they know it all. It's not an excuse for them. It's not an excuse for them, but it just shows you the picture of how things have changed at the moment. But the thing I now advocate for is for there to be a balance in this, for Gen Zs, as they call themselves, to come to a place where they are able to balance these things, and that is where my argument starts. I'm going to rest my case for now because I will not go guns blazing at the moment until I get more.
Minister Dr. Day has spoken in a proper millennial fashion. You know what you want to say, but you're being very diplomatic and political about it, and you're trying not to hurt the other people. But the Gen Zs, obviously, they don't care. They are just okay. So, as it looks like you're the only millennial that is here, though. I will try to.
Dr. Japheth is back.
Dr. Israel, I'm back now. Actually, I just had some glitches there.
Oh, all right. Welcome, Dr. Japheth. It's good to have you here. All right. So over to you. What misconceptions do you think? What misconceptions do Gen Zs have about millennials? What misconceptions do they have about millennials?
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. No, I think I want to just key into what I'm going to say co-debater now. but what he has said so far, because interestingly, the key thing here is that there's a knowledge gap that's not really there, and this is me speaking as a millennial right now. There's a knowledge gap that's not really there yet for the Gen Z group, and despite the knowledge gap, they have that exposure. So the thing is, there are a couple of videos that we can always watch on YouTube sometimes, and then you see some of these really, really basic questions that we knew or we know the answers to. And then they ask all these basic questions and they don't know it. However, many Gen Z people are experts in world politics, but really when you go deep and then you try to, in medicine we usually say palpate or percuss the person a little bit deeper, you see that there's really little or no foundation concerning those beliefs or those views. Again, I think it's majorly because of the internet. The internet has a lot of, they are pushing a lot of ideas into people's minds, and then that's the effect. But to directly answer your question, I think one of the misconceptions that I would have about millennials is that maybe we're too structured, and then we're too rigid, and then we want to do life in a particular structured way. We want to always abide by the rules and regulations of particular places. If you're in a particular place, okay, there's a dress code to go with this place. Okay, I'm going to act in tandem with what everyone is doing here already. So, okay, so let's not go to affairs gender. All right, so primarily, primarily, I think they attack from that angle. But again, I mean, like Dr. Ade was saying, really, there's something called decorum. There's something called there are acceptable rules and regulations in every organization, every place. And I think it pays. There's wisdom. We were having a conversation one time in a particular meeting. I think it was a Toastmasters International meeting where we would do a lot of public speaking. We learn public speaking in that organization. And then somebody raised up, the question there was that, is shyness a bad thing? Is it bad to be shy? And then an older lady raised her hand from behind and said that she wanted to contribute to the question. And what she said was that sometimes there are times when you should be quiet and you should not use the word shy, but you should actually be reserved in some certain situations. I think these are things that Gen Z can also learn from. Thank you.
Oh, right. I think finally the millennials are getting the guns blazing, and I'm loving this. Well,
Gen Zs, please come back.
Right. So yes, now don't worry, we're going to go back to the Gen Zs, right? Now, there's something both speakers from the millennials said. They said something about one said about being structured, talked about knowledge gap, about being rigid and all of that. And now, so over to the Gen Zs. I think maybe Miss Zuleika, maybe I think you should take this question. Do you think, because from what the millennials are saying, they are just trying to play it safe, and then most times they consider the Gen Zs to be reckless, in quotes. So, but the millennials are playing it safe. So, what is bad in playing it safe, like the millennials are doing?
That's very okay. What's bad in playing it safe as a millennial, right? Yeah. Or just generally?
Yeah. No, well, millennials say that you people think they are too structured. When they talk of a dress code, they stick to it, but they say Gen Zs are like you are living life on your own terms, not on the terms of the others. So they consider them, and them being too structured and being rigid is like they're being safe. They're playing it safe. So if they say, you have to come to work with a tie, they make sure they go with a tie so they don't lose their jobs. For the Gen Z, he can go with his shirt and everything. And if you fire him, he finds something else to do. So why do you think?
Well, I think first of all, I'll just start from where Zoe said. I like the way our name sounds very similar. That's nice. Anyway, I think a lot of Gen Zs are stereotyped to, be a particular way, just because we are younger and all. They portray us to be reckless and unserious and all that. I remember when I was talking to Dr. Monore about this program, one of the things I said to him was, I didn't even realize I was part of like the Gen Z grouping, because largely I feel the Gen Zs are more serious than they portray them to be. Because the truth about it is, we have millennials that give Gen Z vibes. That's just it. I've seen millennials that I feel like I'm more mature than them, right? So I think playing it safe, I think you can. Playing it safe, you can. There are some situations where you play it safe, but I think Gen Zs are naturally very explorative. We want to try out new things. A lot of Gen Zs I know are not doing things that they learned in school. Like, you have a lot of people that are just like, for instance, my sister read optometry, but she's a script writer. So I think as Gen Zs, we tend to want to explore our other abilities. We don't want to stick to the things maybe we learned in school. We just want to explore ourselves. But I think millennials that I've maybe come across, or a lot of them I've worked with, they tend to want things to be done, even down to the church. Like, I'm in media department in the church, and as a young person, you come with your ideas. Okay, I think this will grow the page, and someone is saying like, no, this is not allowed. So you're like, I think we can actually work together. But sometimes a lot of millennials are very like, okay, this is how we've been doing it, and we must continue doing it like this. But I feel we have ideas, we have that energy. We have millennials tend to like sticking to a procedure. This is how you did this to get a particular result. Of course, I believe in structure. I believe that if you are working and they say, okay, this is what you're supposed to wear to work, stick to it. It's your job. It's how things are done. But I feel like millennials could be more flexible in the way things are done, like in the way they accept and receive ideas from younger people. We are not trying to push them away. We're not trying to take over like people think we are. But yeah, just I think working together and realizing that flexibility actually helps to bring more results, more input. Like if you try things in a new way, you realize that. And again, like I said, it's also down to the church. You have churches today that a lot of young people don't feel welcome because there are things that are there that you just feel like, okay, this place is not for me. But you have other churches that are actually very, very attentive to the needs. And when I say attentive to the needs, it doesn't mean we have to lower our standards as Christians. I believe a lot in. But again, that balance between knowing that there are certain things that would appeal to more people if you want to reach a wider audience. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, you did amazingly well. Thank you very much. So, Gen Z, millennials, hear this. They are not reckless, but then they are trying to be free. Okay, now, I'm going to ask, the next question is going to go to a Gen Z, and also millennial is going to answer, but let me start with Dr. Moses. Right. Do you think that this communication issue is a Gen Z millennial issue or just a generational issue across different generations?
Thank you very much, Baba. Yeah, so it's really nice to be on this platform, and I'm glad I have two women actually fighting for my cause, because when they are women, you will win. So I'm sure Gen Zs we are winning this. So yeah, Gen Zs in the building.
Wow.
I'm too sure.
We are doing it. Right. I think the question you asked is actually a very valid question, because I talk to Pastor Edward about this stuff most of the time, and we joke a lot. And one thing I always bring out actually for me, just like Mrs. to be Zuleika said, the truth is, I really don't know if I'm Gen Z sometimes. I was even trying to let me go with the culture that I represent. And when Pastor and I talked about this stuff, I find out I probably even fit well in the oldest generation, or the greatest generation. That's what they are called. Those are people that are born in 1920s. Because there's this old soul, and I think people are very different and varying in different degrees for so many people. So one thing I always try to bring up is, if there's anyone here that are into old movies and old stuff, have you ever watched those movies or check those things that they made then, and everybody's millennials, those old guys millennials. The problem, millennials. So many jokes, so many satires, and so many it's millennials are the cause of the problem of this world. And I think that was the time where millennials were really the youngest generation then, I'm talking about times the early 2000s or the late 90s. Millennials were still what are these millennials doing? So I feel there's a gap, there's a communication problem, generation to generation as time has gone. And the thing is, what the main focus is, or what the main focus should be, is how we can bridge the gap. Now, the good part is that the millennials and the Gen Zs have kind of a closer gap, if you get because it's look at it, there are boomers, there's Gen X, there's the millennials, and then there's the Gen Zs. You see that the closer you are, the more you can actually bridge the gap. It's just think of a very long bridge, and sometimes it's farther to get to older generations. So we do it step at a time. We take it generation to generation. The Gen Zs come in tune with millennials, and I think we can actually bring up a lot of things. We can actually see face to face if we actually try to get this communication gap intact. For me, the truth is, I really don't see much of that difference between millennials and Gen Zs. Yeah, granted, Gen Zs live through the age of technology. I think we can all agree with that. And for the millennials, it was a little bit of no technology and more of technology. So in some ways, that tells me that we can actually communicate. We can actually see eye to eye. So communication can be done a step at a time between each generation. So from Gen Zs to millennials to go to the one side, and I think that would really make a lot.
Yeah, so if I understand you properly, what you're saying is this: it's not just a millennial Gen Z issue, it's a generational issue. All right. can I hear from any of the millennials? So do you think that this issue is particular with the Gen Zs, or do you think we also had this, we as millennials, do you think we had this issue with our parents, maybe the baby boomers or the Gen X?
Yes.
Any of the millennials can answer.
I honestly think he was spot on, actually. I think with every generation, there's definitely always going to be some changes that are going to be observed in the way of doing things. And then definitely, it's no news. We've heard our parents say the same thing, that you guys are this, you guys are that, you guys, the young people of today, they don't focus, they don't do this, because again, with every generation comes a different challenge, and with every generation will come a different way of doing things, generally speaking. So I absolutely agree with him, for sure. It's not unique to this. In fact, as a matter of fact, our people who are the Gen Z today, very soon when they're having a Gen Alpha conversation and all of that, they're also going to be saying, you people are this, you people are that, you people are this.
It's coming. Wait. It's already happening, actually. And that's why I'm asking this question, because the Gen Alphas are really taking the internet by storm.
Exactly.
Gen Alpha.
Exactly. So you can imagine them at a very young age. You know, would say millennials were somewhat born with the Gen Z people were literally born with a lot of internet access. But we can even imagine what would happen with the Gen Alpha people. They're going to be literally supersonic, I don't know, moving with jet speed. So definitely there's always going to be this conversation of, oh, wow, this next generation, they are this, that. Definitely. And the reason is because, of course, there are gaps. So yeah, I think to directly answer your question, definitely. It's an ongoing conversation.
All right. Dr. Moses touched on something, and now that is the question I'm going to ask Dr. Zoe. He said something about, that millennials are a little bit of a blend of the baby boomers and the Gen Zs. Now, so Dr. Zoe, over to you. If we are a blend of both sides, don't you think that millennials and Gen Zs are actually the same, and that we are more advantaged? Dr. Zoe, over to you.
Okay, I'm muted. I was saying, please rephrase the last part of the question.
All right. So, Dr. Moses was saying that Gen Zs, that millennials are like a continuation, of the baby boomers, and then they flow into the Gen Zs, right? That's what he was saying. So now my question is this. If that is the case indeed for millennials, don't you think that millennials share a lot in common with Gen Zs? In fact, don't you think they are the same?
No, definitely. I don't think we're the same, because I think if we're really the same, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So for example, let's use the style of communication as an example. When it comes to Gen Zs, I think we're very short and straight to the point with our communication. We don't, sugarcoat things. There's this tweet I saw where someone was quitting a Gen Z was quitting a job that they'd been working on for about 8 months, and it was not favorable. And all they did was write an email that said, it's not giving what it's supposed to give, I'm out, That's how Gen Zs would, conventionally communicate, right? I'm not saying it's the best way, but that's how Gen Zs communicate. When it comes to millennials, I think they embrace various forms of communication. They are open to like face-to-face conversations, and they love to go into in-depth. And I don't think, like you're saying at the beginning of this conversation, that when the millennials first spoke, they had points they wanted to say, but they were not really saying them. You know what I mean? Like they are, I don't know how to put it, but they sugarcoat it in a way. And then baby boomers entirely, I think, I wouldn't say they have the best communication style. I feel like they're very one-sided in terms of their communication. They don't come, yes, I'll say diplomatic. There's millennials are very diplomatic. So they won't tell you really that, this is not right. A Gen Z will straight up tell you that, please, I'm cutting you off, or you're cancelled, But
energy, toxic energy.
Yes, you're giving toxic energy, bye, period, But millennials would, it's your friend or it's your employee, try and make it work. So I don't think we are the same in terms of like communication. Like I was saying, baby boomers are very one-sided. They are, respectfully speaking, I think they're not open to opinions. Millennials are open to opinions, just that they sugarcoat things, and Gen Zs are very Gen Zs are very direct, I would say. And then in terms of Gen Zs, or maybe like economically speaking, or with jobs, like we're saying at the beginning of this conference, we're open to various. We're not limited to I'm a doctor, so I must stick to medicine, or whatever career path that we're open to different things. If TikTok is where it's at right now, TikTok is giving. It's where you're getting your bag, you secure your bag there. I think millennials have this whole if you're a nurse, we die there, that kind of thing, and I'm not sure about baby boomers in terms of like economic stability or economic jobs and stuff, but I don't think that in any way the three generations are in any way
the same
or the same or like share certain similar parts.
All right, so now this goes to the millennials. Before I come back to the Gen Zs. Now, the millennials, it's from what is happening or from what everyone has been saying, it's looking like the millennials have that responsibility of bridging the gap of communication between both generations. So, Dr. Adeosun, do you think it is the responsibility of the millennials to do that?
Yeah, thank you for that question, because I think so. I think it is the responsibility. It's not just, it's compulsory for millennials to do that, because the way things are I think it is, because the way things are going now, we need a generation that will build a bridge between the Gen Zs and the millennials, and even the generation that's come before us, because it's quite important when it comes to transfer of wealth, transfer of knowledge, transfer of experience. It's quite important with that, because yes, I agree that there are a lot of things that the Gen Zs can do, as in they have so much potentials. I will not even deny that fact. They have so much potential, they have so much exposure that some millennials did not have until their late 30s, their late 40s, where energy is lacking, and even that point where you can begin to generate bright ideas and for stops. This is the time that the Gen Zs have for that, and there's a market, there's an avenue for that. But it comes to a point where they need to understand the basic principles of doing things, and that is where we millennials have to teach them and have to take the responsibility of mentoring, because as you can see, the world is going at a fast pace, and the things about the Gen Zs is that Gen Zs, they know how to follow each other when it comes to things that are trending, things that are going on around the world. There's this kind of followership mentality which they have, but there's no much in that context. You won't see much of mentoring, much of understanding the way at which processes needs to be made, and that is the fear I have for the Gen Zs, because when you are going at a fast pace and you feel like you've gotten all you need to get, it ends up causing calamity. And if we are not careful as millennials, we just keep on, and that's what we do best as millennials. We are able to point out the error, but when it comes to actually making the action, there's a few percentage of millennials that have that capacity and or have stepped into that capacity in helping people. And right. I must commend the millennials that are trying to do this in terms of public speaking in different areas of of life. You'll see where you'll see the older generations of billionaires mentoring the new upcoming billionaires, and those are the things that we need to see. There are also millennials that are into social media, and there are some of them that try to help the Gen Zs, but there are some Gen Zs that and the problem I have with the Gen Zs at the moment is that the majority of Gen Zs thinks that they've already gotten what they need, they are riding it solo. And if you are really following the social media space and what is going on around the world, you see that there are a lot of them running into problems, which necessarily should have not been so if if we have had this if this conversation has been, has been made known, and people are getting intentional about, bridging this gap.
All right.
I don't know if that answered the question.
Yes, that answers the question. That's amazing. All right. One last question for both sides, and it's going to be a yes or no. And now I'm intention before we then have like one or two people speak from the crowd. Now it's going to be like a yes or no question. Now, millennials, do you think that Gen Zs have the herd mentality? So it's like once one person is going one direction, every other person goes that direction. Do you think they have such mindset? The question is for millennials. Dr. Jaffet, are you here?
Okay, I thought it was for a Gen Z question, sir.
No.
You said if do you think if they have a herd mentality, did I
Yes.
get it correct?
Yes.
Okay. I think with the advent of the internet, which influences a lot of the thoughts, I was talking about something about deep. Okay, well, it was supposed to be a yes or no question.
Yes.
But now,
all right, you have 30 seconds.
All right, so yes, I think so.
Yes, you think so. Okay, Gen Z is over to you. Ms. Zuleika or Dr. Moses, any of you can answer that. Do you accept that you guys have this herd mentality?
Nah, I don't think so. I think we're our own people.
You have 15 seconds to make your case. You have 15 seconds. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, yeah. So like I said, I don't think so. I think we're our own people. There are Gen Zs that actually like take time to like study trends, look at things. I think the word is we are more supportive. Gen Zs, I think we do this thing where, for example, like
exactly. I love that statement that Gen Zs are more supportive. All right.
Yeah, we're supportive of each other.
It's Miss Zuleika. What do you have to say on this subject?
Yes, I think I would agree that we are more supportive. For instance, we can even take the whole Hilda Bassett thing as an example, right? Like a lot of people don't even know. Like I have friends that literally went to the place not because it was like, oh, this is our own person. So I think it's more like a support thing as opposed to like a head mentality or just follow every.
Okay, but I think also with that, the way Millennials also went there and bulk of the money she got.
Definitely.
Anyway, all right. Anybody from the crowd that wants to say something, real quick? Okay, Dr. Edwards says something very serious. He said herd mentality is more millennial in my observation. Dr. Edward, can you talk to us about that, like in 1 or 2 minutes, please?
Yeah, I just think we grew up as millennials where there was no a lot of allowance for diversity. Mm-hmm. So you see a lot of, it's only in the millennials you see a lot of people saying, I want to be doctors, and it goes that way. I want to be lawyers, and it goes that way. The community has a kind of shape that it has to take. Millennials are big on timelines, on things to be done. So it's the breakaway started with millennials, but I think the Gen Zs are more fluid when it comes to deciding to do what they want to do. They are supportive, but one thing I've noticed is that if a Gen Z decides to do something, they are the biggest supporters, and if they won't, they won't do it. So with a Gen Z, you can know whether they want to do or not. It's not really that deep. But you can have, like, if you have a team of millennials, you have to be a little bit scared because 6 of them may not even want to be there in the first place, but they don't even know how to say it. We respect the structure, we respect those things. So that head mentality, we just follow it because what we do, that's it. There's something we want to do, we'll just help you. So so I think that's head mentality. I think for head mentality, how I see it more millennial than Gen Z.
I think I side with Pastor Edward on this, though. No offense to the millennials, because I don't know how many of you have ever seen that tweet that when we were growing up, it was either doctor, lawyer, engineer, or disgrace to the family. Anyone saw? So it was like there was a specific structure. but now you can hear millennial parents saying that they will allow their children to explore, more possibilities and do what they want to do. But then in our own case, was either doctor, lawyer, engineer, or embarrassment to the family.
That's millennial parents. So millennials are then fluid in their thinking.
No, we are becoming fluid, and it's because we've noticed that we can't hold the Gen Zs because they are willing to break.
And one thing I think as well, one thing I think as well is that I think millennials resent some, not all. Some millennials resent Gen Zs because they eventually are doing some of the things that we had in our minds that we can't do. We couldn't tell our parents, no, I'm not doing this. And then you see your elder sister killing it and living the life. And yeah, there are the discrepancies there. If you want to look at the family setting, there's some of the things your younger sister will say. You don't go with the disrespect, but finally you feel like somebody said it to mommy. Somebody said it. You shouldn't have said it that way. You shouldn't have, but if not for you, this issue, so we're going to, and that's why I think bridging the gap comes to millennials, because we kind of understand you people. To be honest, we pretend not to, but you're speaking our minds, just that you're overdoing it in my sense. So somebody said it to the boss, and it was the Gen Z, and they quit. Yeah, but the millennial will not quit, and they will remain there. Will be happy.
Like in 2020, this okay generation who spoke up, and then in Nigeria there was Sorosoke, like they say. I hope I pronounce it well. I'm sorry if I'm murdering the Yoruba and stuff like that. So yeah. Anybody wants to say something? I'm seeing a lot of activity coming from Abena. I'm coming from yeah. There's Zuleika that is speaking. There's Dr. Arayo Belumi. You want to say something? Raised. Can I hear from their hands raised?
Hands are raised up. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It's the way my thing is, so I'm not able to see that. Okay. I see. Yes, let me take Zuleika.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say something very quickly. There was something, I think it was Dr. Emmanuel Adiosun that said something about mentoring. And I just wanted to say something about that. I agree with the fact that millennials have like a role to play. And you see this mentoring tonight, it's something that is very close to my heart, because I've had people that are in my life that are kind of like mentors, but I think even with mentorship, with millennials, if you don't do things the way they advise you to do it, there's some, and let me not generalize. I've had experiences where someone's like, oh, do it like this. And I'm like, well, I thank you for your advice, but I think I still prefer to go on with it like this. So I feel even with mentorship, millennials need to learn that the fact that you are like an older generation doesn't mean we have to necessarily obey. There was someone actually told me that, oh, I don't obey everything she says. And I'm like, but you're not God. God, it's only God that we should obey, right? So I think there's this balance where, in as much as you are trying to help us, we appreciate everything, but have this balance where you know that we are adults, we can think for ourselves, we can make decisions, you can advise, you can come in and, help us to do things better. But at the end of the day, I think it's toxic to want to make people to do things your way, 100%. There should be room for us to bring in what we want to sorry to take us back, but I was just thinking about it, and I said, let me just say this.
Yeah, anyway, so millennials, stop playing demigods, stop thinking you are little gods and try to impose your ideologies on people. Well, thank you very much for bringing that. That's an amazing perspective. All right, Brendan Gomera, yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to say something as we were talking in terms of mentorship and everything. And I think it was Dr. Jaffin, he said something that was like very, very key and important. He mentioned that the issues that we're having, I think it was also Brother Moses who said that as well, that the issue is not really like one side seeing the other side's perspective, but rather bridging the gap. And I remember having conversations with millennials over time, and there was one aspect that was translated from the Gen Xers into the millennials that ultimately made them better. It was the aspect of time. I remember them, like back then, would have our grandfathers complaining that, your people are always not on time, your people are always not on time. And I'm talking about the younger generations, because like your grandfathers who are just in their early 40s or anything, and it translates down. So what I wanted to say was, it goes two ways. You know, there's something that the Gen Zs can teach the millennials, and there's something that the millennials can learn from, or rather can pass down to the Gen Zs in that particular aspect. So in terms of the boldness that Dr. Zuleka was saying, that's something that you guys never had because you guys were beaten. I can attest to the fact that the amount of beatings has decreased as the generation passes down. But then that is something that brought in discipline. So it's now up to you guys to now bridge in the gap and say, okay, you can take it up until this point, but from this point moving forward, it's not acceptable.
All right.
So, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, that's amazing. That's beautiful. Thank you very much, everyone, for your input. Now, we understand that, yes, this gap can be bridged by the millennials actually, you know, creating mentorship sessions while still allowing the Gen Zs to fly and do what they want to do. So please, as millennials, we have the responsibility to do this. It's amazing when I see millennials that are, you know, working and doing this. We have an example is Pastor Edward. He's doing an amazing job. Well, and a couple of other millennials that are out there. Dr. Japheth, I know he's amazing. Minister Day is top millennial. I think there should be a cushion before. But Minister Day is an amazing guy and everything. So, as for the Gen Zs, we also played with you. Minister Day wants to say something. Yes, Dr. Day, you can get the mic. You can.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to mention this.
And speak.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, we can hear.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. So I posted. I don't know if you saw it. I posted the Bible verse, the 1 Timothy 4:12. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech and conduct, in love, in faith and in purity. Now, let me use myself as an example. I'm attending a Gen Z church currently, and I can see the trend of how Gen Zs work and how they operate. And one thing I can say that is just the difference between the Gen Zs I'm seeing here is because they are working with the standard of the Word of God. You know, the Word of God brings that standard. And that is what the Gen Zs, that's why I'm inviting the Gen Zs that are Christians now. This is where your work starts. Because yes, this conversation is going to continue, the millennials, Gen Zs, but as much as we, the millennials, have a part to play, the Gen Zs that are Christians, that know the Word of God, that have the Holy Spirit in them, you have a standard to set, because no matter what dispensation or what year you are, the year 2050, the year 2060, the year 2070, the standards of the world does not change. And that is where we need to impute our lives and show ourselves, even at any generation where you are. Let the Word of God be the standard. If you are going to go into the social media, and I like the way we started this conversation. I like the speakers that have spoken before we started this debate. They've made us understand that even in our secular life, secular career, the Word of God is still the standard. And let that be a take home for each and every one of us today, no matter what side we choose to hear to. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much for that. I believe
I have just 1 minute. Is it possible? 1 minute.
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
30 seconds. All right, perfect. So just in tandem with what Dr. Ade has said, the key thing that bridging the gap between generations. I think one of the things that can happen in churches is that we can begin to lose a particular generation from a church because of that disconnect. There's no connection anymore. A friend of mine was sharing exactly the same thing that the church was going to, and it was like the other generation, their generation was just left aloof, and then they were always saying, "You are not serious with God. You are not this. You are not that." As opposed to coming down to their level. Of course, the Word of God remains the same, but the onus becomes on the elder people or the older people to really calm down and say, "How do we understand people and connect them so that we can all make impact for God's kingdom?" I think it's absolutely very important to make sure, to be certain that we're connecting, and then we don't lose people out of the faith because of this disconnect. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Dr. Jaffe, for bringing that up. That's exactly what I was discussing with someone about 3 months ago. And yes, very apt. And I think Moses said something. He said, the word of God bridges the gap, basically. Yes, because our God is a God of generations and times and seasons. All right. So I'm going to quickly hand over to, thank you very much, everyone, for participating today. It's been an amazing time. It's been an awesome time.